Alright, video. I figure I'd do you a quick walk around on this truck before I take it off jack stands here. So, start back here. Filling up the rear gear oil right now. That's a Dana S60 or Strange built. Calvert lowering springs. I'm running, if you can see in there, those are two spacers. They're 9/16 each, so 1.125" drop. Also on that, I run their shocks, Calvert shocks. This thing here, that is my, what do they call that? A surge tank, I guess? Fuel pot, swirl pot, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it allowed me to use my external A1000 pump that I still had. And the factory fuel tank. So what happens, I have, and I'll show you in a second up front. Here, hang on. So here's the kind of middle of the vehicle. That's the factory fuel tank there. So what happens is, from the inside of the fuel tank, it's got your little sock or whatever. It comes up, and it goes from the top of the tank into this little pump. It's just one of those little carbureted lift pumps. From there, it goes right here and goes all the way back to that surge tank. So, from that fuel pump, it'll come up, and I don't recall if it's this one up here or this one. But what it does is it takes fuel from that main tank, starts filling this sucker up. Now, this bottom one here, it's got the filter, that goes and feeds the A1000 pump. From there, so it comes from the A1000 and comes up into here. We've got this one here is the feed line. And so what it does, these are all old lines I had. This wouldn't be quite like this, but I didn't want to buy new fuel lines. Anyway, so it goes and it does this number. Right here, kind of does this S curve, goes up, feeds that fuel rail right there. This fuel rail comes down, feeds the injectors. There's Holly. I put a little piece of corrugated tubing on there just for his wire protection, so no chafing of any other wires on that stainless. Feed this side, feeds those injectors, and then there's a 180 back there into the regulator. Regulator returns back down that way. So that regulator then returns fuel. Like I said, it's one of this one here or it's this one. I can't remember. But either way, all the fuel that the A1000 is returning, you know, you're pumping a bunch of fuel into the tank or from the tank into this, out of this, into the A1000. It goes and returns fuel back into this, and then this, right up here, that line there, this goes back to the top of the main fuel tank. So basically, this thing's always got a slug of fuel in it all the time. It's got a fuel pump feeding it, and then it's got all the return fuel from the main fuel pump also feeding it, and it just bleeds off the excess back to the main fuel tank. Works pretty good. I hope it works good driving. Could have been done a lot simpler than that, but again, I had that external A1000, and I didn't want to not use it. I mean, it's an expensive fuel pump. So this is what I came up with. Should work good. It worked great with the carbureted system. I've had this thing running so far with the fuel injected, and it seems to work too. This is the exhaust system. It's got a thing that kind of kicks it off stock out that way. Didn't like it. Gonna end up splitting it to duals. Two duals right here. Looks like it's got decent clearance up and over. We'll see. I got rid of my bump stops, cut those things off and ground it all down, repainted it. You can kind of see the exhaust as it goes forward here. Single 1350 U-joint, 3-inch 3-inch drive shaft. You can kind of see those exhaust clamps. I had those nice and level and they look good, but they didn't fucking clamp properly. It's that slip fit stuff. They were leaking a little bit. Rotated these so that the actual kind of clamp portion where it tightens is not on one of those splits, and that's how it fit. You can kind of see forward there. It's got good ground clearance. You can see factory 4L80E transmission pan, and then I've got a Holley oil pan, and you can see it sits all above, just barely above that factory cross member. Here's the passenger side. This was the one that to me fit the worst. The exhaust system fits great. Let's see if I can crawl around here. You can kind of see as it comes up right here. You got your starter. You got some tranny lines. If you look up here, where the fuck was that going to go? I mean, there's just no room. The header just runs right into the frame there. Let's see. So yeah, I put a huge cave in on that. It's hard to see. This thing's not focusing as well as it needs to. But I did. I had to put a monster cave in, and you can see where the exhaust, the clamp, all that. I mean, it would have run right into the frame. Holley, Hooker, whoever, they, I don't know. I'm the only one with this problem, I guess. Whatever. Anyway, did some heat wrap, little spacer there, keep everything nice and you know, not gonna catch on nothing. Torque converter, I don't even know what the stall speed is. I bought this thing for that station wagon, if you can imagine that, a long ass time ago. So it's got some kind of stall. It's not stock. Should handle any amount of power that I can afford. We've got SPC lower control arms. Run SPC lower control arm with a tall ball joint there in the lower. So what that does is instead of running a drop spindle, it lowers it a little bit that way. Viking coilovers, they're adjustable. You know, they're not like a coilover on my GTO or a lot of other vehicles where you don't mess with the shock stroke. If you adjust these too low, you don't have any shock stroke. If you adjust them too high, then you have no shock droop. So you kind of get a pretty minimal amount of adjustment out of them, but they're right in the middle right now. They've been riding good. They're double adjustable shock absorbers. They've got valves on there, knobs. Also have a tall upper ball joint, and that ended up allowing for a improved camber curve as the whole suspension cycles. Basically, it made that spindle, the whole spindle, from where it hooks up there to that upper, a lot taller, and it kind of really revises the suspension geometry. The upper control arms, as you can see, right there, you can kind of see one of the nuts. They're fully adjustable also, so you can adjust your camber caster there. There's no using your shims, your standard shims and whatnot. Willwood 4 pots. I got Willwoods in the back also, Willwood 4 pots. Used a Holley tranny cross member, you know, and like I said, the exhaust, it fits up good. You look where these bolts are. These bolts right in the middle. So I don't, you know, and I can't slide that the engine and tranny forward more because the oil pan will hit the cross member, and I can't slide it back because the cylinder heads will hit some of the factory bolts that come out of the firewall. So I don't think it's my own motor mounts because they're not Holley. They're some welder up DIY motor mounts, and I don't think that's the issue with those headers not fitting. They just weren't going to fucking fit. Their tranny cross member fits great, but definitely those headers are not fitting well. All right. I don't know if I can really get this in there and focus, but there we go, kind of. So down there, those two AN fittings that are 90 and then got those big dash 10 lines, those are oil cooler line. It's an improved racing. Instead of just blocking it off on the oil pump there, or the oil pan, blocking off that plate, I got a thermostatically controlled. So the oil does not go or flow to the cooler until it's up to 180 degrees, which is good. You don't want your oil too cool, where, you know, that's not good. You want it nice and hot. So this only cools it when it needs it. And that ends up running forward. There's those arms I was talking about. You just camber and caster that way. No shims back here. And so that runs right here. My oil and tranny cooler. I built a bracket so that way it all fits up. Shit ton of money in fittings to make it fucking work because there's not a lot of room. Tranny cooler, oil cooler. A lot of the line I had and stuff, so some of it was kind of make what I had work and whatnot. Aftermarket sway bar there. All new steering stuff. Drag links and whatnot. I need to align it. Gonna be fucking with this in a second. Not too shabby though, not too shabby. Got some sweet LED headlights. Got a ticket for that in Stanwood, but don't care, they're orange. Ticket got dropped. It's not illegal to have orange lights in the front of your fucking vehicle. So, new AGR steering box. That's a high or a quick ratio steering box, hard to see under there. And that's a Corvette or a Camaro, Gen 5 Camaro steering pump. The belt spacing on a Camaro Gen 5 and your truck is the same. So that's what I used. The pump that I bought from AGR, they said it's matched to the steering box there. Had them weld in an AN fitting so there's no O-rings to fail. This, that. See some of my ground stud work I made down there and some ground wires. Ground both sides of the block. I really wanted to make sure I didn't have any issues with that. Got, there's my ground for my fans and my headlights, as a matter of fact, down there. That actually runs to another main ground stud that I had put on right over here. That one runs up to the block. This one goes to the battery. Just lots of, power and ground. Real good grounding and power, so that way we don't have any problems. I haven't popped a fuse yet. Most of that there is for my fans, my fuel pumps, my headlights, bright lights, and fog lights, relays, all that shit. Main power. This is actually coming from the alternator. I'm sorry. This goes to my little block here. Goes to my Ford solenoid. And then this, once you click the key, sends power from the battery, one side of the solenoid to the other, straight over the starter. Didn't want any wires down there really, other than that one. Another grounds I made. The cooling system kind of starts up here, say an expansion tank. And so you've got this up here, which is just your regular puke, right? If it gets too hot and boils over, it's going to come out of there, come down here. Got that little T there. Goes to this side because this radiator would have been a normal radiator. Again, it's something I had, the radiator laying around. So these tee off. This radiator cap here is much higher pressure than that one. So this, well, if it's going to overheat, it's going to start spewing out of that. This is basically sealed up. It's a lot higher pressure. 22, you can see. 22 PSI, that one's a 16. And then, yeah, it's got a little puke line that runs down there. Just kind of drips down there. Anyway, so then this one here up high, your water level sits about here. This is from the steam vent over there. Your factory LS steam vent, right? So it comes up, all its steam goes up in here, and it constantly is purging and circling water. This goes down. This is where you fill. This is basically my highest point in my radiator system. This goes down and goes right into here, kind of where your, right here, where your factory on a S10 or whatever, on a factory, that's where your heater core would have gone. So what I did is I was, well, okay, I'll just make my swirl pot go there, and now it totally circulates all the water in there, here. You got your regular thermostat in. Both my, these lines here for my heater core, they go up and they go back there. I did a custom mount heater core. It's kind of hard to see, but I've got some lines back there. They do a 90 and come around. Little Speedway 45 here with a 90 aluminum, 90. Pretty standard radiator for an S10 swap. I did cut out my core support so I can move everything forward. And some dual electric fans in there. Use a piece of flat bar to mount them all up. Got a piece of rubber for insulation, kind of so it's not metal on metal vibration, shit like that. Custom sheet metal intake. No, not really. It was mostly so I could mount my fuel pressure regulator. And then I was like, well, I need to cover this up because that factory intake's kind of fucking ugly. So, did that. Underneath this thing, that's where your evap purge would have been. So what I did, because it's exposed to vacuum boost, this actually, ASP, they're a local company, I believe out of Renton or somewhere down south. They're a local company. Anyway, ordered up one of those, came all the way from fucking Florida, from some other race shop. But this goes to my boost gauge, my vacuum boost gauge in the cab right now. And then these are for later, for, you know, blow off, wastegate, blow off, whatever I need. I just wanted to have those. That's the factory spot where they did their factory fuel pressure regulator. I just hooked mine up factory. I could have used that. I just wanted to keep those open. I'm not even using them really right now. I did that also. A little JB weld action. Did a pipe thread fitting in there, so that way if that air manifold air temperature, if that sensor fails, I can replace it. That's where it's at. Sniper throttle body, 92 millimeter, nothing too special. My serpentine setup. This is an ICT billet mount. It's their turbo mount. Just sucks the alternator really close as you can get it in that way. I liked where the Camaro pump was also. Makes for a nice kind of V-belt setup, which it's kind of hard to see with the intake and shit in there, but you can kind of see it. There's a tensioner down near the power steering pump, and that's what keeps it's a factory tensioner that was up here. It's an ICT billet piece that mounts it down there that you can't really see. Spark plug wires, they're just some Taylors. I tried to make my own, which I always do, but there's a plastic doohickey inside here. I could not fucking make it, man. I spent 2 hours trying to make one plug wire. I gave up and had to buy some. Header fitment, plug fitment's great. It's LS3 dipstick. It's what Holly recommended. This is my trans dipstick. It will bolt down right there eventually, but I needed to make sure it's full. And if I need to fill it, it ends up sitting real flat and kind of out of the way. If I need to fill it, I got to take it off. Not that big of a deal once it's all finished up. That power wire there is main power. It's what powers up kind of all the main power inside the cab for the fuse boxes, the column, shit like that. And that's just on one of these. These are just car stereo things. Fuse break it, circuit breakers, click them, opens the circuit. Got no power. That switch power up there, that is actually on ignition, key ignition. One of those small red wires is for my Holly on that they said you had to make sure that it has cranking power. That one does. So that's how this thing starts. Air filter setup you recommended, so I went with that. Fits great, works good. Kind of got my Holly box there. Wilwood master cylinder. These headers fit really good too. Other than, like I said, near the frame, I had to beat this one a little bit. And even near the block, this fucker was not going to bolt on. It was never going to fit just on the block when it was on the ground. I had to bash in the collector a little bit to get it to fit next to the block. And I did cut the ears off this transmission like you're supposed to. So, whatever. Plug wire, that's the only one I'm concerned about, only because it touches that bolt head there, and it's a little tight, but got lucky that it's tight, because fuck, it clears that steering shaft great. That's a hooker steering shaft. It's like $120. I had a Jeep one in there. But to put the Jeep one on, to get it to actually bolt on there, you got to do a little modification that I didn't do. And it's just a pain unless, you know, you got your steering column out, which I already bought the shaft, all that. Good shaft, $120. Little line lock solenoid. Some of my Holly wiring. You know, it just snakes through and goes under the intake manifold mostly, and then wraps around back. Yeah. I've got 16-inch wheels, front and rear. This is a 16x7. Yokohama, just some regular old tires. They're nothing special. Some street tires. Eventually, I'd like to get some good wheels for autocrossing, and then also get some slicks for the back. This is a 215 55/16 on a 16x7. The rear is a 16x8. I don't know my offsets right off the top of my head. This tire is a 235 65/16. It ends up being 28 inches tall. It's just like a 275/60/15 or many others. 28 inch tall. Pretty standard for your drag tires or whatever for drag racing. So fitment is real nice on there. Definitely got plenty of room to go wider too. Could put a 9 or a 10 like everybody else. Probably, like I said, get some autocross wheels and whatnot. Some 18s, some street tires or whatever. I would like to have, real sticky tires on those. Get another set for just some drag slicks. This is kind of my main wheels tires. Inside, it's pretty chopped up still. Put on a new wheel. I like this wheel. If you listen, when I hit the horn button, you can hear the relay for the horn. So eventually I'll have a horn when I hook that up. Ratchet bit shifter. It's a 4-speed shifter. Works just like any other shifter. You got your park, reverse, neutral, drive all the way down. Once you're in fourth, you can ratchet down, down, down. Or if it's all the way in first, ratchet, it's in first, second, third, fourth. So, right, there's first. And then you're wah, boom, wah. Oh, what the fuck? It's not working. Well, I have to look at that because it was working before. Glad I found that now. Oh, there we go. So ratchet down, ratchet up. I don't know what happened there. Anyway, so yeah, you're in first gear. Boom. Second gear, third gear, drive. Also, I have these wires here. One's a trans brake wire, one's a line lock wire, and one's a bump. So trans brake only works when it's in first. I got some buttons. I'm going to do something to wire it up so that way it's kind of one of those and then take off and then shift. Well, not shift like that, but shift, shift, shift. Anyway, mess with that. It's my heater box. It's where the heater core is plumbed in through the firewall there. This is my main fuse panel. Some other auxiliary stuff. That's a ground, kind of a ground station. Got, your green wire. That's for your bright lights, right? Turn on your bright lights. Oh, hey, fucking little blue light will turn on. Blinkers. This blue wire's a left or right blinker. I don't remember. Got another one. This is for my alternator, so that way it will charge properly. You either have to do a light bulb or a resistor off that pigtail. At least the one I bought from Painless Wiring Harness. Anyway, so I did a light bulb. It's a little check engine light, and it lights up when you... Let's see here. If I can do this. Boom. Check engine light. As soon as it starts, it goes off. Got the Holly. There's that. And so that's a wideband on my driver's side. It's warming up. There's my vacuum boost. It'll settle in a second. Holly doing its thing over here. I do need an oil pressure sensor. You can see that low air, no oil PSI. But I have a oil pressure. I definitely got oil pressure. Oil right there, factory gauge. Yeah. Should be a ripper. I did actually hook up the safety switches so that way it won't start if it's in reverse or whatever. It only starts in park and neutral. I actually have reverse lights also that work. That's going to go somewhere else eventually. It's on warm up, so it's rich as shit. 10, 10.2, 10.9, whatever. It's rich because it's on warm up. You can hear that air filter, really doing its thing. That's some rich, real rich. Kind of stinky. That's a good sound though. As it warms up, I'm sure it will be less rich. I haven't tuned anything on this yet. I've only let it get up to temp once or twice. do run my fuel pumps on a switch. I've got my little lift pump here. That one there, it's just on a keyed circuit. It won't turn on or off unless the ignition's on. Same with this. This is that green wire from the Holly. So I can shut it off. So that way, you know, if I want to turn on the key and just mess with, I don't know, Holly ECU functions and shit like that, my fuel pumps aren't sitting there or even turn on at all. I can turn it on and off. I also have my electric fan done the same way. These are just hanging right now, but that way I can, you know, if I'm sitting in traffic and I'm not up to, you know, operating temp, but I can see it's gonna be a lot of traffic or staging lanes or whatever, I can turn the fans on without having to worry about the Holly. Mostly for drive-throughs and shit, I think. I don't know, I just like having control of that. This is for my heater. Got a little defrost. Focus. Focus. Anyway, that says off, there we go, off, low, medium, high. It's just blows air. I gotta run everything so it'll have defrost, but something you gotta have, you know. So yeah, I mean, it does its thing. Light is glowing still a little bit, but I read a thing about how to make it so it doesn't want to stall like that too. Sloppy Mechanics has some good videos on tuning your timing table. That's something that I definitely plan on doing eventually. Probably here, I don't know. I was gonna go drive around today, but we had shit weather. Anyway, that's the truck. Have to come over, we'll do a drive as soon as this thing's, I don't know, I think after work I'm gonna go try to drive this around my neighborhood. Still doesn't have tabs. Probably should get insurance put back on it. But yeah, I think tomorrow, hopefully it'll be a nice day, give it a wash, and try to go run this thing around the block, do some self-tuning, and then do that learn transfer file, keep on building this thing to where it really wants to run real well, and, you know, tune it. All right, man. Talk to you later.